Welcome to the deep dive. We peel back the layers on stories you think, finding truths maybe you haven't considered. Today we're looking at a name synonymous with humanity's biggest adventure, Neil Armstrong.
That iconic moment, right?
Right.
That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. You can't forget it.
Exactly. It's etched in history. But our deep dive today, it goes beyond just that quote. We're really on a mission here to explore the man, Neil Armstrong, behind the legend.
Mm-hmm.
His whole journey from, a pretty humble start in Ohio all the way to the moon, and then, a surprisingly private life afterwards.
Yeah, we've gathered quite a bit. Articles, research notes, trying to get a real feel for the challenges he faced, the quiet triumphs, maybe the things people don't talk about as much.
And get ready, because there are some genuinely surprising things we'll uncover, like his passion for flying starting incredibly early. I mean, before he even had a driver's license.
That's almost hard to believe, isn't it?
Right, and his career as a test pilot, the risks, the close calls, so many near catastrophes.
And of course, that whole debate around the famous quote itself, we should definitely get into that.
Oh, absolutely. And his life after Apollo 11 as the sort of reluctant American hero, what really made him the perfect person for that giant leap. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Where did this journey kick off?
It starts back in rural Ohio, Washington Township, born in 1930. And his dad was a state auditor, which meant the family moved constantly, like 16 times in 14 years, all across Ohio.
Wow, 16 times.
Yeah.
That's a lot of upheaval for a kid.
Yeah.
I wonder if that maybe fostered a certain resilience, adaptability.
Could be. Maybe that quiet self-reliance he was known for later. And the flying thing, it started really young.
Yeah, this story goes his dad took him to the Cleveland Air Races when he was just 2.
2 years old. And his first actual flight was around 5 or 6 in a Ford trimotor, the Tin Goose, they called it.
That must have made quite an impression. He was apparently hooked right away, building model planes all through his childhood.
Totally hooked. And it wasn't just models for long. He got his student pilot certificate on his 16th birthday. Flew solo that same August.
And this is the kicker, all before he had a driver's license. Flying came first.
It really shows where his passion lay. But it wasn't just flying. He was serious about scouting, too. Made Eagle Scout.
Right, and he even took a World Scout badge to the moon with him, which is a neat little detail.
It is. So you see these threads early on, adaptability from moving, discipline from scouting, this intense technical focus with flying.
And then comes Purdue University, aeronautical engineering. But interestingly, not MIT.
Yeah, the reason is kind of quirky, isn't it? He supposedly chose Purdue after watching their football team beat Ohio State in 1945.
A football game. It's funny how small things can change a trajectory. And his tuition was covered by the Holloway Plan, right?
Exactly, Nathaniel Scholarship Program. So that meant a commitment to Navy service after his initial studies.
Which really baked in that mix of engineering theory and practical, hands-on military experience right from the start. It kind of defined his whole approach.
It really did. That blend pushed him forward. He became a midshipman in 49, then a naval aviator in 1950, and then Korea. He flew the Grumman F-9F Panther off the USS Essex. Saw combat.
78 combat missions, over 120 hours in the air. Earned medals. It wasn't just training anymore.
And his Navy time wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. There were some incredibly close calls. Can you tell us about one of those?
Oh, absolutely. There's a really dramatic one from August 51. He was in a low bombing run over Magellan, going about 350 miles per hour, and he hits a cable they'd strung across these hills, rips off 6 feet of his wing. 6 feet.
Whoa, at that speed.
Yeah. And there was anti-aircraft fire all around, though apparently none actually hit him directly. He somehow nursed the damaged plane back towards friendly lines, but he'd lost an aileron. The plane wasn't really controllable enough to land safely. Ejection was the only option.
So he punches out. Over water, he hoped.
That was the plan, yeah. Eject over water, wait for rescue. But the wind caught his parachute and blew him back over land. But then, incredibly, his roommate from flight school just happened to be driving by in a Jeep and picked him up.
You can't make this stuff up. That's extraordinary.
It really is. And it tells you so much about Armstrong, doesn't it? That ability to stay cool, think clearly, act decisively, even when things are literally falling apart around you.
That core composure. These experiences, they weren't just war stories. They were absolutely forging the pilot and the person he'd become.
Exactly. After the war, he finished his degree at Purdue, then shifted gears into being an experimental research test pilot. First for NAGA.
Which was the precursor to NASA, right?
Right. National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics.
Mm.
Then NASA itself, when it was formed in '58.
Based out at Edwards Air Force Base. flying all those cutting-edge planes, the Century Series fighters.
Yeah, the F-100, 101, 104, 105, 106. He eventually flew over 200 different types of aircraft in his career. A staggering number.
But the X-15 rocket plane, that was really pushing the envelope, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He flew it 7 times, took it up past Mach 5.7, over 200,000 feet high, 63 kilometers, true edge of space stuff.
And there's another famous incident from his X-15 days, right? The time he ballooned it. What happened there?
Yes, the ballooning incident, April 1962. During the descent, he basically bounced off the thicker part of the atmosphere higher than intended. Ended up overshooting the landing area at Edwards by something like 40 miles. He was way out, going Mach 3 at 100,000 feet.
40 miles. How did he get back?
He just had to make this long, banking turn, bleeding off speed and altitude, and managed to bring it back and land safely. It really showcased his ability to, problem solve on the fly in a very unforgiving environment.
Became Edwards folklore, I hear. But not everyone saw his flying style the same way.
That's true. It's interesting. You had guys like Milt Thompson calling him maybe the most technically capable, saying his mind just absorbed everything like a sponge, an engineer's pilot.
But then others, like Chuck Yeager.
Yeah, Yeager famously felt Armstrong was maybe more mechanical than flying, less seat-of-the-pants instinct, perhaps.
So maybe not the flashiest, but deeply analytical, understanding the machine inside and out.
Exactly. That engineering mindset, combined with that incredible coolness under pressure, made him almost uniquely suited for what was coming next, spaceflight.
He joined the NASA Astronaut Corps in '62, part of the New Nine, and he was NASA's first civilian astronaut to actually fly in space.
Which was significant, although we should note Valentina Tereshkova from the Soviet Union was the first civilian overall and the first woman the year before.
Right, important context. So his first spaceflight, Gemini 8, March 1966, he's command pilot with David Scott.
Their big goal was the first ever docking in orbit, linking up with an uncrewed Agena target vehicle.
And they nailed it, right? First try.
Perfect docking. Textbook.
Yeah.
But then things got really dicey really fast.
What happened?
While they were docked, and crucially out of radio contact with Houston, the combined spacecraft just started rolling, tumbling.
Oh, wow.
They didn't know at first. They undocked from the Agena, thinking maybe it was the problem. But the Gemini capsule started rolling even faster, like once per second. Terrifying.
So it was their spacecraft.
Yeah. Turned out one of their maneuvering thrusters was stuck open, firing continuously. Armstrong had to use the re-entry control thrusters, the ones meant only for coming back into the atmosphere to stop the spin.
That sounds like a massive decision, using re-entry fuel.
It was. It meant the mission had to be aborted immediately. They had to come home early. And initially, there was some criticism, people suggesting they'd botched it somehow.
But that wasn't fair, was it?
Not at all. The key thing is, there were no procedures for this kind of failure. Nobody had planned for a stuck thruster while docked. And the reentry system design meant he had to activate both rings. He couldn't just use one.
So he did exactly what needed to be done to save the crew in the capsule.
Precisely. And it taught NASA a huge lesson. Treat docked spacecraft as one single system. His calm thinking under extreme duress saved the day and fundamentally changed how they planned future missions.
Incredible pressure. After Gemini, he kept working, backed up Gemini 11, did a goodwill tour in South America, speaking local languages, apparently.
Yeah, showed the dedication extended beyond just the technical side.
Then came Apollo. His path to commanding Apollo 11 was kind of set by the usual rotation, but against a really tragic backdrop.
Right. He was actually in D.C. signing the Outer Space Treaty when the Apollo 1 fire happened. He heard about the deaths of Grissom, White, and Chaffee later that day. A devastating blow to the program.
Such a loss. But the program pushed on, and the rotation put him in line for Apollo 11. And he made a key decision about his crew, didn't he, regarding Buzz Aldrin?
He did. There was apparently an option floated to potentially swap Aldrin out for Jim Lovell as the lunar module pilot.
But Armstrong stuck with Aldrin.
Yeah, he basically said he had no issues working with Buzz and that Lovell deserved his own command, showed loyalty, professional integrity.
And training for the landing itself. Those lunar landing research vehicles, the LLRVs, nicknamed the Flying Bedsteads. They sounded terrifying but essential.
Absolutely essential. They were notoriously difficult to fly, but they were the only way to really simulate landing in the moon's lower gravity. Gave the commanders crucial hands-on experience.
And Armstrong himself had a very close call with one, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. May 1968, he's flying an LLRV. The controls start to degrade. The thing starts rolling completely out of control.
What did he do?
Ejected. It only about 100 feet off the ground. Seconds later, the whole thing crashed and exploded.
100 feet. Did he get hurt?
Amazingly, no. Just bit his tongue, apparently. That's it. Can you imagine?
Unbelievable composure, but he still believed those things were necessary.
Absolutely. He maintained they were vital for the success of the actual lunar landings. That kind of practice was irreplaceable.
Okay, so launch day, July 16th, 1969. Apollo 11 lifts off. Armstrong's heart rate apparently peaked at only 110 beats per minute during launch.
Which is remarkably calm, considering the circumstances.
Right. Then, the lunar descent, they're coming down in the LM, the Eagle, 3 minutes into the final descent. Armstrong realizes they're heading for trouble.
Yeah, looking out the window, he sees the landing zone. Autopilot is taking them into, well, it's basically a field of boulders. Not good.
Not where you want to land your billion-dollar spacecraft. And then the alarms start going off.
The infamous 1202 and 1201 alarms, computer overload warnings.
What was causing that?
It's fascinating, actually. Buzz Aldrin later figured it was likely because he had left the rendezvous radar switch in the wrong position during the descent checklist. So the computer was trying to process extra unnecessary data from that radar and handle the landing calculations. It was just too much.
So, boulder field ahead, computer screaming alarms. What does Armstrong do?
What he did best. Stays cool, takes manual control. He starts flying the LM like a helicopter, looking for a clear spot, extending the landing sequence.
Which used up precious fuel, right? Mission control must have been sweating.
Oh, big time. Down in Houston, they were watching the fuel gauges tick down. They thought Armstrong and Aldrin landed with maybe only 40 seconds of fuel left. That includes the margin needed for an immediate abort liftoff.
40 seconds. Talk about cutting it fine. Though later analysis showed maybe 45 or 50 seconds. Still incredibly close.
Still incredibly close. You can just imagine the tension. Then the probe on the landing leg touches the surface. The contact light comes on.
And Armstrong makes the call.
Houston, Tranquility Base here.
Yeah.
The Eagle has landed. Just iconic.
And you could hear the relief back in Houston, couldn't you? Capcom Charlie Duke's voice.
Yeah. Roger. Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. You feel that collective exhale across the planet.
Incredible moment. So they land. They decide to move up the schedule for the moonwalk, the EVA.
All right, they were eager to get out. So Armstrong climbs down the ladder.
He hits his left boot down, Aero 2.56 UTC, July 21st, 1969, and delivers the line.
That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind.
Okay, let's talk about that line, the A. Was it one small step for man or one small step for a man? It's been debated forever.
It really has. The audio recordings aren't super clear. There's static. NASA and Armstrong always insisted the A was there, just obscured. Armstrong himself later kind of conceded he might have just dropped it in the moment.
But then there was later analysis, digital analysis.
Yeah, years later, an audio analyst named Peter Shanford used advanced techniques and claimed the A was spoken. But the limitations of the communication tech at the time made it basically inaudible. Armstrong apparently found that analysis persuasive.
Interesting. So maybe he did say it. NASA's official transcript still puts the A in parentheses, right? Acknowledging the fuzziness.
Exactly. But honestly, whether the A was there or not, the impact of the statement was, well, monumental. Broadcast live to over 500 million people, maybe 20% of the world's population watched.
Just staggering. 19 minutes later, Buzz Aldrin joins him on the surface.
Yep. They unveil the plaque on the LM leg, plant the American flag.
The flag looked wavy, didn't it? Because the telescoping pole didn't fully extend.
That's right. A little technical glitch gave it that iconic look. President Nixon calls him from the White House.
And Armstrong did most of the picture taking, apparently.
Yeah, which is why there aren't that many great photos of Armstrong on the moon. He's mostly reflected in Aldrin's visor or just partially in frame in a few shots. He was focused on documenting the mission.
He walked quite a distance, too, didn't he? To a crater.
Yeah, about 65 yards over to what's called East Crater. That was the furthest anyone got from the LM on Apollo 11. He also left some memorial items there for fallen Soviet cosmonauts and for the Apollo 1 crew.
A poignant gesture. The whole moonwalk, the EVA, lasted about 2.5 hours. Which seems short now, but back then...
They were being cautious. NASA wasn't entirely sure how the spacesuits would hold up in those extreme lunar temperatures over a long period. Baby steps, so to speak.
Literally. Okay, so time to leave. But there was one more bit of drama, right? With the ignition switch.
Ah, yes. The Ascend engine ignition switch. Somehow it got broken off. They couldn't press it to fire up the engine to leave the moon.
Seriously, how did they fix it?
Classic astronaut ingenuity. Buzz Aldrin used part of a felt-tip pen to push the circuit breaker in.
Yeah.
It worked.
A pen saved the day. Amazing. So they lift off, rendezvous with Collins in orbit, head home, splash down in the Pacific, picked up by the USS Hornet.
Then straight into quarantine for 18 days, just in case of moon germs.
And after quarantine, global superstardom.
Oh, yeah. A whirlwind 38-day giant leap tour around the world. Ticker tape parades in New York, Chicago, millions cheering, Presidential Medal of Freedom from Nixon.
But Armstrong, he wasn't really comfortable with all that, was he? The intense fame.
No, not really. He seemed to shy away from the constant limelight. He actually resigned from NASA fairly quickly in 1971, wanted a quieter life.
And went into teaching.
Yep. Aerospace engineering at the University of Cincinnati. Interestingly, he chose Cincy over his alma mater, Purdue, apparently because he preferred its smaller department.
Known as a tough professor, I read.
Apparently so. A tough grader. He also later said he regretted not tying his NASA experience more directly into his academic research. He left the university in 1980, partly due to increasing bureaucracy, it seems.
But he didn't just retreat entirely. He stayed involved in important ways.
Definitely. He served on the investigation board for the Apollo 13 accident. His engineering mind helped pinpoint that faulty thermostat switch as the root cause of the oxygen tank explosion.
Crucial work. And he was involved after the Challenger disaster, too.
Yes, he was vice chairman of the Rogers Commission that investigated the Challenger accident. He was apparently key in keeping the final recommendations focused, only 9 key points, believing that too many recommendations would just get lost or ignored. Very pragmatic.
He also served on corporate boards, did some commercial endorsements.
Right, including for Chrysler for a time.
Yeah.
And Thiokol, actually, the company that made the solid rocket boosters, implicated in the Challenger accident, though he joined their board later.
Despite all this, the public perception was often that he was reclusive, a hermit almost.
Yeah, the reluctant American hero label really stuck. John Glenn said Armstrong just didn't feel that he should be out huckstering himself. Mike Collins joked he'd retreated to his castle and pulled up the drawbridge.
How did Armstrong feel about that?
He seemed kind of amused by it, actually. He quipped back that maybe it was the people living inside the Beltway in D.C. who had the problems, not those living out in the hinterlands like him.
He fiercely guarded his privacy and his image, though, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He refused to let MTV use his one small step. Quote, he sued Hallmark Cards for using his name and image without permission and donated the settlement money to Purdue.
And he stopped signing autographs.
Yeah, back in 1993. Said there were just too many forgeries flooding the market. He even stopped writing congratulatory letters to new Eagle Scouts, feeling it should come from someone who actually knew the scout personally. Shows a real sense of integrity, a refusal to let his name be exploited or devalued.
What about his personal life? Politics, religion?
He steered clear of politics, declined offers from both parties, identified as a deist, which apparently caused his devoutly Christian mother some distress.
And there was that strange hoax about him converting to Islam.
Right, based on a completely false story about hearing the Islamic call to prayer on the moon. The U.S. State Department even had to issue statements debunking it multiple times.
He kept flying, though, didn't he? Gliders.
Yeah, well into his 70s. Loved soaring. There was also a bizarre incident on his farm in '78 where he caught his ring finger in some machinery and tore the tip off. Surgeons successfully reattached it.
Ouch. He remarried later in life, too.
Yes, he and his first wife, Janet, divorced in 1994 after 38 years. He later married Carol Held Knight, whom he'd met at a golf tournament.
Okay, moving towards his final years, he needed heart surgery in 2012.
Yes, coronary bypass surgery in August 2012. Initial reports suggested he was recovering well.
But sadly, that wasn't the case.
No. Just 20 days after the surgery, he passed away due to complications. He was 82. President Obama called him among the greatest of American heroes, not just of his time, but of all time. A fitting tribute.
His family statement was quite moving, too, wasn't it? Asking people to think of him and give him a wink when they look at the moon.
It was lovely. And encouraging young people to explore, push limits, serve something greater than themselves really captured his spirit.
But there was a difficult coda to his passing, wasn't there? Something that came out years later regarding his medical care.
Yes, that's right. In 2019, it was revealed that his family had filed a medical malpractice suit against the hospital where he had his surgery.
What were the allegations?
The suit alleged serious errors in his post-operative care, specifically a delay in taking him back to surgery after signs of internal bleeding were detected. The family believed these errors contributed to his death.
And it was settled quietly.
Yes. The family settled with the hospital for $6 million back in 2014. A condition of the settlement was that they remain silent about it. It suggests the hospital was deeply concerned about the potential negative publicity surrounding the death of such a revered global icon.
A very sad and complex postscript.
It is. A reminder that even legendary figures face intensely human struggles.
His passing brought tributes from everyone, especially his Apollo 11 crewmates, Aldrin and Collins.
Heartfelt words from both. His memorial service was held at the Washington National Cathedral, attended by so many space legends. Gene Cernan shared a story highlighting Armstrong's teamwork back during that Gemini 8 crisis.
His ashes were scattered at sea in the Atlantic, but his legacy, of course, endures everywhere.
Absolutely. The honors are countless Presidential Medal of Freedom, Congressional Space Medal of Honor, the Congressional Gold Medal alongside Aldrin, Collins, and John Glenn.
Things named after him. A moon crater, an asteroid.
Schools, museums, even a mineral Armstrongite. Purdue named its engineering hall after him. NASA renamed its Dryden Flight Research Center in his honor. The Navy even commissioned a research ship, the RV Neil Armstrong.
And the biography, First Man, and the film based on it. His memorabilia, like the pieces of the Wright Flyer he took to the moon, sell for fortunes. Still the #1 space hero in polls.
Even late in life, at age 80, he was still engaged, publicly criticizing the cancellation of NASA's Constellation Moon program. He even said he'd volunteer to command a mission to Mars if asked.
Amazing spirit, right to the end. So wrapping this up, we've traced this incredible life from that curious kid in Ohio through the dangers of test piloting and the drama of Gemini, to that historic step on the moon, and then the quiet, principled life he led afterwards.
We really see how that unique combination, the deep technical understanding, that unbelievable calm under fire, the inherent humility made him perhaps the perfect person for that singular moment in history.
So what's the takeaway for us listening today? Neil Armstrong's story, it feels like a powerful reminder, doesn't it? That sometimes the greatest leaps forward come not from the loudest voices, but from quiet dedication, from pushing boundaries relentlessly, and from a profound sense of duty.
That small step wasn't just about landing on the moon. It was about the culmination of a lifetime of preparation, skill, and courage. It continues to inspire us to look up, doesn't it? To think about human potential when courage meets ingenuity.
It really does. And maybe it leaves you with the final thought. What giant leap, big or small, are you quietly preparing for? Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Ever felt that pull towards ancient wisdom, that sense there's something hidden just beneath the surface? Today we're journeying into a realm that's fascinated people for, well, centuries. Kabbalah. It's often wrapped in mystery, maybe misunderstood sometimes, but it's this deep system of Jewish mysticism. And, it has some surprisingly relevant insights for us today.
Exactly. And our goal here really is to cut through some of that mystery. We want to peel back the layers. We'll explore its real origins, its core ideas, the powerful stuff, and why it still resonates now. Think of this deep dive as your pathway, extracting the essentials so you can grasp its core without getting lost in, jargon.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. The name itself, Kabbalah, you sometimes see it spelled Qabalah too. It literally means reception or tradition in Hebrew. So what kind of tradition are we talking about? What's being received?
Well, fundamentally, Kabbalah is a mystical way within Judaism. Its main goal for adherents is to find the deeper, often hidden meaning in the Hebrew Bible and other traditional Jewish texts. It's about revealing this profound spiritual significance behind religious practices. And ultimately, it tries to explain the connection between God, this unknowable, eternal Ein Sof, the infinite, and the, finite physical world he created. How does the utterly transcendent relate to us, to our world? That's the question.
Right, like understanding the divine blueprint behind everything. And this isn't some brand new idea. It has ancient roots for sure. But Kabbalah as a more formal system, it really developed between the 12th and 13th centuries. Think southern France, Spain, Al-Andalus, big intellectual centers then. And that's when we see texts like the Zohar emerging, late 13th century, really foundational work.
Absolutely. But what's key is it didn't just spring up fully formed. It's part of this much longer thread, this whole history of Jewish mysticism. You can trace impulses back to biblical prophets, Elijah, Ezekiel. their direct visions. Then it evolved through apocalyptic writings and the early Hekalat and Merkabah literature that's all about visionary journeys, heavenly chariots, that kind of thing. Even earlier texts like the Sefer Yetzirah, maybe 200, 600 CE, were crucial, exploring mystical connections between numbers, letters, cosmology, all this built towards those great medieval works like the Bahir and, as you said, the Zohar.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Fast forward to the 16th century. Ottoman Palestine, the city of Safed. This period gives us Isaac Luria. People often call him the father of contemporary Kabbalah. Huge influence. His system, Lurianic Kabbalah, was later popularized, made more accessible, through Hasidic Judaism, starting around the 18th century. So Hasidism kind of took these deep mystical ideas and brought them into everyday life, right? More personal, spiritual experiences.
Precisely. It shifted the focus. And to get how Kabbalists approach their texts, it helps to know about the Pardes method, P-A-R-D-E-S. It's an acronym. It outlines 4 levels of understanding the Torah. Pashat, the simple, literal meaning. Remez, hints, allegorical stuff. Darash, imaginative, interpretive. And then Sod, that means secret or esoteric. That's the layer Kabbalah focuses on, uncovering those hidden meanings, like finding a code.
Peeling back the layers to get to that spiritual core. Makes sense. And within that sod level, there isn't just one way to study it, is there? Different approaches.
Not at all, yeah. We can generally see 3 main streams. The biggest one is Theosophical Kabbalah.
Yeah.
This is about understanding the divine world through human psychological symbols, myths. A core belief here is that what we do, our actions, actually affects the spiritual realms. It's reciprocal, a cosmic give and take.
Oh, okay.
Then you have meditative or ecstatic Kabbalah, think Abraham Abulafia. The goal here is direct mystical union with God. It uses specific techniques, meditation, to sort of nullify the self and merge with the divine intellect. Very intense.
Yeah.
And finally, there's practical Kabbalah. This is much rarer, more, well, magico-talismanic is a term used, trying to alter the world through specific methods, sometimes called white magic. But importantly, this is always a minor tradition, often restricted, only for the extremely pure. Lurie himself apparently prohibited it until, a future perfected time, like when the temple is rebuilt. So very limited.
That distinction is key. Understanding versus trying to actively manipulate. Now, lots of people hear Kabbalah and maybe think of pop culture figures or things tied to the occult. We should probably clarify the difference between traditional Jewish Kabbalah and these other forms that borrow the name.
Yes, that's a really important point. Starting in the Renaissance, Jewish Kabbalistic ideas were studied and, frankly, adapted by non-Jews, Christian scholars, Hermetic occultists. This led to things like Christian Kabbalah and Hermetic Kabbalah. They mixed Jewish concepts with Christian theology or with magic, alchemy, other occult traditions. These developed separately from Jewish Kabbalah. And that's where many of the popular sort of occult associations come from, associations that are actually forbidden in traditional Judaism. It's a divergence.
Got it. Okay, so we've set the stage. Let's dive into the actual core concepts now. This is where you see that rich tapestry of ideas.
Absolutely. And maybe the most fundamental is the concealed and revealed God. Kabbalists talk about the Ein Sof, the infinite unknowable God, totally beyond us. But that same God also reveals himself through creation, becomes accessible. These aren't opposites, they're complementary, like hidden roots in a visible tree. The Zohar, for instance, reinterprets the very first verse of Genesis to show this process, how the unknowable brings forth creation through divine emanations.
Emanations, which leads us to the 10 Sephirot. These aren't just abstract concepts, right? They're active.
Oh, very active. They're seen as 10 divine attributes or channels through which God creates and sustains the universe continuously. Think of them like maybe colored lenses that the infinite divine light passes through. Makes creation possible, understandable. But crucially, they are not separate gods, just different aspects or ways the one God reveals his will. They map onto creation, but also onto ethics, like chest, loving kindness, Gevurah, strength or justice. And Kabbalists believe our righteous actions, the actions of Tzaddikim, righteous people, actually ascend and strengthen these qualities. We help sustain creation.
That's huge. Human actions having cosmic weight. Which brings us to those really dramatic Lurianic ideas. Timsum, Shavira, and Tikkun. Sounds like a cosmic play.
It really is a cosmic drama, and it changes everything. Simsum first. That's God's primal contraction or withdrawal. Imagine infinite light filling everything. For anything else to exist independently, the light had to pull back, creating a conceptual void or space.
Okay, making room.
Exactly. But this initial act, this withdrawal and the subsequent flow of light into the vessels led to instability. An initial shattering Shavira. The vessels couldn't contain the intense light. Shards fell into lower realms. This created a kind of primordial exile of divine sparks before humans even existed,
Wow.
which leads to tikkun, that's the repair, the rectification. And this is humanity's central job. Our purpose is to find, gather, and elevate these exiled divine sparks through our actions, our mitzvah, to heal the cosmos. Luria taught that Adam's sin caused a second shattering, and the giving of the Torah at Sinai began the process of tikkun, the messianic repair.
So we're not just observers, we're integral to fixing things, essentially, which ties into the role of man and the soul in Kabbalah.
Precisely. Humans are seen as microcosms of the divine. Our souls, our bodies, reflect these divine structures, the Sephirot. The soul itself has layers. Nefesh is the basic animal, instinctual soul. Ruach is the spirit, tied to moral virtues. Neshama is the higher soul, intellect, capable of divine awareness. There are even higher levels, Chaya and Yehida, for deeper connection. And linking this to Tikkun, the idea of Gilgul Neshamat reincarnation is central. The soul might need multiple lifetimes to complete its task of gathering sparks, achieving its repair work.
Such a rich view of human potential and purpose. Now, another fascinating angle is the power given to language itself, linguistic mysticism and the mystical Torah.
Yes, beautiful stuff. Kabbalists believe God didn't just use words to create. Creation happened through the Hebrew language, through the Torah itself. Every single Hebrew letter, every word, their shapes, their numerical values, they all hold deep mystical meanings. They're seen as channels of divine energy. Gematria, finding numerical links between words, is one tool for uncovering this. They distinguish between the Torah, the tree of knowledge, the external law, what most people see, and the Torah of the tree of life hidden within it. This inner Torah has infinite mystical meanings flowing from every letter, every vowel point.
These are incredibly deep ideas. How did they gain authority within Judaism, especially when they sound so, well, different from straightforward religious law? There must have been debate.
Absolutely. Gaining authority from mystical claims is always tricky, right? Early Kabbalists often relied on claims of direct revelation. Visions of Elijah, communications with souls of past sages, and the use of pseudepigraphy, attributing texts like the Zohar or Sefer Yetzirah to ancient, revered figures like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or Abraham, help lend them weight. It took modern scholarship, really people like Gershom Scholem in the 20th century, to study this academically and show just how vital mysticism was to Jewish history, challenging earlier rationalist views that dismissed it.
But Skolem's work recognized its importance, not necessarily its literal truth claims. And there were criticisms from within Judaism all along, weren't there?
For sure. Back in the medieval period, you had major rationalist thinkers like Maimonides who were very critical of mystical texts that seemed too anthropomorphic, describing God in human terms. He saw it as problematic. And interestingly, some early Kabbalists actually framed their work as the true inner meaning that resolved the philosophical problems Maimonides raised. So there was dialogue, tension. You also get into complex, sometimes difficult areas, like discussions about the souls of Jews versus non-Jews. Some texts, like the Hasidic work Tanya, have passages that historically have been interpreted as suggesting fundamental differences. But then you have other Kabbalists, like Elijah ben Amosek much later, who had a more universal outlook, seeing Kabbalah as something that could bridge different religions. It's definitely not monolithic, and scholars today approach these texts very carefully.
And how do different Jewish movements today view Kabbalah? Is it universally accepted?
No, not at all. Historically, conservative and Reform Judaism were often quite skeptical, even though some Kabbalistic elements, like the Friday night Kabbalah Shabbat service, became standard. But in recent decades, there's been a huge resurgence of interest across liberal movements. Neo-Hasidism, exploring the spirituality. Within Orthodoxy, it's also varied. Mainstream Haredi and religious Zionist communities generally revere Luria and the Zohar. But you still find some ultra-rationalists who dismiss much of it as superstition.
And we should probably touch on the really controversial offshoots, too. The Antinomian Kabbalah.
Right. Briefly, yes. Movements like the Sabbateans, followers of Sabbatai Zevi in the 17th century, and later the Frankists. These groups took mystical ideas, particularly Lurianic ones about chaos and repair, to radical extremes. They ended up inverting Jewish law, arguing that redemption comes through sin, intentionally breaking commandments to supposedly hasten the Messianic age. These were widely condemned as heresy, obviously, but they show how these powerful ideas can be twisted.
Okay, so bringing it to today, how is this ancient, complex tradition actually explored now? We mentioned different streams earlier.
Yeah, broadly you see four main ways people engage with it. There's the traditional study, often in yeshivas or with the master. Then there are universalist Jewish organizations like Bnei Baruch or the Kabbalah Center, which aim for wider audiences, sometimes controversially. You still have non-Jewish esoteric groups like Hermetic Kabbalah practitioners working with their own adapted systems, and of course, rigorous academic study in universities.
And within Judaism itself, is it still evolving?
Definitely. Especially within Hasidic communities and the Neo-Hasidic movements we talked about. They're constantly finding ways to internalize these deep Kabbalistic concepts, applying them to prayer, ethics, daily life, making it a living spirituality. And you also see fascinating intellectual projects. People like Sanford Draub talking about a new Kabbalah in dialogue with modern psychology and philosophy, or Edward Schiefrin exploring links to information theory, even quantum physics. It shows this ancient wisdom isn't static. It keeps inspiring new ways of thinking, bridging worlds.
Amazing how it continues to resonate.
It really is. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. Kabbalah deeply embraces paradox, what it calls the coincidence of opposites. So many of its key symbols hold contradictory ideas together as simultaneously true. The Ein Sof being both ultimate being and no thing. Good emerging from the struggle with evil. Light needing darkness. It kind of invites you to look at the world, maybe even your own life, differently, to see where apparent contradictions might actually point to a deeper hidden unity. What opposite ideas in your own experience might hold some kind of unexpected complementary wisdom. Something to think about. You know, the chubby winged cherub of Valentine's Day, right? That little guy.
Cupid?
Exactly. For most of us, that's pretty much Eros. But what if we told you that image? It barely scratches the surface of one of the most powerful and, frankly, enigmatic figures in all of Greek mythology.
It really does. There's so much more to him.
So today we're doing a deep dive into Eros, the Greek god of, well, love and sex. We've pulled together some really fascinating sources to unpack his origins, which are complex, his roles, often contradictory, and some surprising sides to him that make him far more than just that sweet-faced kid.
Yeah, the idea is to really reshape how you might think about love and desire, looking back at how the ancients saw this incredible deity.
And we'll explore how Eros wasn't just seen as, a mischievous child, but sometimes as a primordial cosmic force, like essential to the actual creation of the universe.
It's a completely different scale, isn't it? It suggests that for the Greeks, love wasn't just an emotion. It was more like a foundational principle, something that literally sparked the universe into being. A cosmic creative force, not just, a feeling between two people.
That's
Okay.
Yeah, that's profound. So not just a god, but almost a principle of existence itself. Where do we even start with uncovering that Eros?
Exactly. Well, if you go back to the really old Greek texts, the picture is totally different from the cherub. Take Hesiod's Theogony, for instance, that big poem about the god's origins, maybe around 700 BC.
Right, the classic.
Hesiod says Eros was one of the very first. He was the fourth being to emerge, right after chaos, Gaia, that's Earth, and Tartarus, the abyss.
Okay, so fourth, right there at the beginning. Like a force of nature, almost. But was that the only view? Did everyone agree?
Not entirely, no. Some went even further. You have philosophers like Parmenides, maybe around 400 BC, who actually claimed Eros was the first of all the gods, period.
The first?
The very first. Think about that. For some, the initial spark of existence was love or desire. It's a massive jump from a winged baby, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And some explanations for his birth are just wild. Aristophanes, the playwright, in his comedy The Birds, he gives this amazing, almost parody version.
Okay.
He has Eros, born from a germless egg, laid by black-winged night, Nyx, who then meets with dark chaos to hatch our race, as he puts it.
That's quite an image.
Yeah,
It's imaginative, definitely bizarre, but it shows how, even in comedy, Eros was tangled up in these deep creation ideas.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, the Orphic traditions, those sort of mystical beliefs, they pushed this primordial idea even harder, didn't they?
They absolutely did. They saw Eros as protogonos, which literally means firstborn, created from Kronos' Orphic egg. For them, he wasn't just a god. He was the creator of all other beings, the first ruler of the universe.
Right.
And he had all these other names, too, showing different aspects of his power. Phanes, the illuminated one. Erchipaios, meaning power. Metis, thought. And even, maybe surprisingly, Dionysus sometimes, linking him to that ecstatic energy.
That's an incredibly complex web of cosmic power, then, with Eros right at the center. How did that play out in the cosmic order, like the transfer of power between gods?
Right, that's a key part. In some Orphic versions, Eros, as Protagonos, actually has Nyx, Night, as his daughter and his consort. He passes his power to her. She passes it to Ouranos, the sky.
Okay.
And then there's this really mind-bending part where Zeus is said to have swallowed Phanes, this primordial Eros again, to absorb all his creative power, basically to remake the world.
Zeus swallowed him.
Swallowed him, which made Zeus both the ultimate creator and the ruler because he now contained that original creative force within himself.
Wow. Okay, so this Eros, he's less personality and more a fundamental principle and architect of everything. It's almost overwhelming, that scale.
Mm-hmm.
But then how did we get to the Eros we sort of recognize? The more, I guess, human scale one.
Indeed. That's the later narrative, and the one that became much more widely known. It shifts to Eros being the son of Aphrodite. Sometimes Ares, the god of war, is mentioned as his father. The poet Simonides mentions that back in the 6th or 5th century BC, and this version is very different.
Yeah. How so?
Well, he's usually shown as a handsome young man, but also often as that mischievous, maybe adolescent boy, always winged, carrying the famous bow and arrows. This is the image that slowly, morphed into the Cupid we know.
And his job in these later myths seems to be mostly stirring up trouble, right? Catalyst for love, often doing Aphrodite's bidding, making gods and mortals fall for each other, sometimes illicitly, leading to all sorts of drama.
Absolutely. It's a world away from creating the cosmos.
Definitely a far cry.
And a key thing here is how the art changed, too. Early Greek art, it showed Eros as a powerful young man, really embodying that raw sexual power attraction.
Yeah.
But over time, he gets younger. He becomes the blindfolded child. Then eventually the chubby Renaissance Cupid, and like you said, the Valentine's Day icon. It kind of tracks how maybe the idea of love itself shifted from cosmic power to something more romantic, almost innocent.
That makes sense. So we've got these two major origin stories, the cosmic and the son of Aphrodite version. But how did people actually, interact with him? What about worship? His names.
Well, despite that primordial power and his link to Aphrodite, his actual cult worship in pre-classical Greece, it seems it was generally less prominent than Aphrodite's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But he did have a pretty significant fertility cult in a city called Thespiae. They held festivals, the Eretidia, just for him, which highlights his connection not just to personal desire, but maybe to life, reproduction, community vitality.
Okay, so he had his spots. And in Athens, I read he shared a popular cult with Aphrodite there.
That's right, yeah, a shared cult in Athens, very popular. The 4th day of every month was sacred to him. So his influence was definitely felt, even if he wasn't always the main focus.
And his names, his epithets, they tell us something too.
They really do. He was called Kaleiduchos. That means something like holding the keys or bearing the keys.
Keys.
Yeah, because people believed he held the key to human hearts. Like he could unlock love in anyone.
Okay, that's a cool image, like a divine locksmith for emotions.
Kinda, yeah. And another name was Pandemos, which means common to all the people.
Pandemos.
Oh.
Common to all. So his influence was universal. Nobody's immune.
That seems to be the idea. Love affects everyone, high or low. Which naturally brings us to his most famous tools. That legendary bow and arrows.
Ah, yes, the weapons.
Central to his whole mythology. Ovid, the Roman poet, really elaborated on this. Eros had 2 kinds of arrows, right? Gold and lead.
Right. Golden one's 4.
Those induced powerful feelings of love, intense affection, desire. You get hit, you're smitten.
And the lead ones, the opposite.
Exactly the opposite. They made people completely averse to love, filled their hearts with, well, hatred or repulsion, basically.
Wow, talk about covering both bases. Creating bliss and misery with one quiver. Imagine having that kind of power.
And you see it play out in the myths. The classic example is Apollo and Daphne.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that one.
Eros hits Apollo with a golden arrow. Boom, Apollo is madly in love with the nymph Daphne. But then Eros hits Daphne with a lead arrow.
Oh, no.
So she's utterly repulsed by Apollo. This tragic mismatch, Apollo chasing her relentlessly. It ends with her transforming into a laurel tree just to escape him. All because of Eros's arrows.
It shows the devastating consequences his power could have. And it wasn't just minor crushes either, was it? What about Persephone and Hades?
Right, that's another big one. Aphrodite actually tells Eros to use his strongest arrow on Hades, the god of the underworld.
His strongest one. Why?
To make Hades fall in love with his niece, Persephone, and abduct her. The idea was to extend love's power even down into the realm of the dead. Shows the sheer reach of his influence. It wasn't just an earthly thing.
That's incredible. extending love's domain to the underworld itself.
It really underlines how Eros was seen as this mighty force who could control pretty much everyone, even the other immortals. The writer Lucian, he has this funny dialogue where Zeus is complaining to Eros about constantly being made to fall for mortal women.
I can imagine.
And even his own mother, Aphrodite, apparently warned him not to treat all the gods as his playthings. It hints at the sheer chaos he could cause.
Okay, so if he's that powerful,
Yeah.
could anyone resist? Was love just inescapable for everyone? Gods, mortals, everyone?
That's a great question. And actually, yes, there were exceptions. He couldn't touch the virgin goddesses.
Yeah, okay, like who?
Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, and Artemis, goddess of the hunt. They'd all taken vows of perpetual purity. They were immune.
So they were off limits.
Totally.
Right.
The poet Sappho famously wrote about Artemis, limb-loosening Eros never goes near her. So it suggests that maybe a strong enough commitment to something else, like chastity, could shield you.
Interesting. So even the god of love had his boundaries, in a way.
It seems so.
Now let's get into some of the stories, the myths, and motifs that really show Eros' complicated, sometimes funny, sometimes profound nature. I mean, the story of Eros and Psyche has to be the most famous one, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a fantastic story, and it existed as a folktale long before Apuleius wrote it down. It kicks off with Aphrodite being incredibly jealous of a mortal princess, Psyche, because she was just stunningly beautiful. People were basically worshiping Psyche instead of her.
Ooh, bad move. Never outshine a goddess.
Right. So Aphrodite orders Eros to fix it, makes Psyche fall in love with the most vile, hideous creature imaginable.
That's not what happens, is it?
Nope. Eros sees Psyche and, well, he falls for her himself hard. He secretly takes her away to this hidden palace, visits her only under the cover of darkness, makes her promise never to look at him.
A secret romance. But secrets never last in myths.
Exactly. Psyche's jealous sisters come along, plant seeds of doubt. They convince her he must be some kind of monster. So she breaks her promise, lights a lamp while he sleeps, sees he's a god, incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
But a drop of hot oil falls, wakes him up, and poof, he's gone. Betrayed.
Oh, devastating. And then Psyche has to win him back.
Yes, she goes on this epic quest. A furious Aphrodite sets her 4 seemingly impossible tasks. Sorting mixed grains, getting golden fleece from deadly sheep, fetching water from the river Styx.
Sounds brutal.
It is. But she gets help each time, often from nature itself or other divine sources. Ants help her sort the grain. A reed tells her how to get the fleece. It's a real trial.
And does she succeed in the end?
She does. Finally, Zeus himself steps in. He makes Psyche immortal so she can officially marry Eros and live among the gods. They even have a daughter together named Hedone, or voluptas in Latin, meaning pleasure, bliss.
A happy ending, then. What's the deeper meaning there? Especially with the name Psyche.
Well, the bigger implication is really beautiful. Psyche came to represent the human soul itself. That's why she's often depicted with butterfly wings, because Psyche was also the Greek word for butterfly.
Oh, the soul is a butterfly.
Yeah, so the story is like an allegory for the soul's journey, facing trials, suffering, growing, eventually achieving purification and union with divine love. There's even a later Gnostic version, more mystical, where Eros' essence is scattered in chaos, and it's Psyche's blood that makes the first rose bloom when she's hurt.
Wow, that's deep. Okay, so from that epic saga, there are also lighter moments, right? Like the story about Eros and the bees.
Yes. That's a recurring motif in poetry, a charming little anecdote. It shows up first in the Anacreonty. Little Eros gets stung by a bee, which he hilariously calls a snake with wings, and runs crying to his mom, Aphrodite.
A snake with wings. That's pretty funny.
Isn't it? And Aphrodite's response is just perfect. She basically says, well, if a tiny bee sting hurts you so much, think about the pain your little arrows cause others.
Good point, Mom. A bit of poetic justice.
Yeah.
Theocritus expanded on it too, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Had Eros trying to steal honey, getting swarmed by bees, and Aphrodite comparing him to the bees small, but capable of inflicting much bigger wounds. It's a clever way of showing the bittersweet nature of love, maybe. The pain that often comes with desire.
True. But not all the stories are light or romantic. Our sources mention a darker side too, where Eros' power is used differently.
Yes, we probably should touch on that. It's important for the full picture. In some myths, particularly those connected to Dionysus, Eros is commanded to incite love that leads to non-consensual acts.
Right, like with Nicaea or Aura.
Exactly. Eros's arrows are used to spark a desire in Dionysus that results in violence. These aren't comfortable stories, but they are part of the mythology. They force us to see that the Greeks understood love's power wasn't always benign or welcome. It could be destructive, obsessive.
It reflects a much more complex, sometimes troubling view of human experience than just simple romance.
Precisely. Mythology doesn't usually shy away from the difficult stuff.
And then there's that strange myth about why Eros didn't grow up. Aphrodite complains he's stuck as a child.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. She complains to Themis, the goddess of justice, that Eros just isn't growing. He stays a boy.
And Themis has some advice.
She does. She says Eros needs a brother. So Anteros is born. His name means counter-love or requited love.
Anteros. Okay.
So what happens? The fascinating thing is, Eros only physically matures when Anteros is nearby. When Anteros is away, Eros shrinks back down to being a child.
That's wild. What's the symbolism there?
Well, it strongly suggests that love, maybe true love, needs something in return to fully blossom and mature. It needs requital, mutual affection, that counter love. Without it, love remains perhaps immature or incomplete. It's quite a psychological insight, really.
It really is. Love needs love back to grow.
That's profound.
Okay, so beyond romance, desire, even these darker aspects, our deep dive has turned up some really unexpected roles for Eros too, like god of friendship
Yeah.
and liberty.
Yeah, that often surprises people. Philosophers like Zeno of Citium, who founded Stoicism, actually viewed Eros in this way as a god presiding over friendship and freedom.
That expands his portfolio quite a bit.
It really does. And it wasn't just philosophy. On the island of Samos, the Samians dedicated a gymnasium to Eros, and they celebrated a festival called the Eleutheria, which means liberty, in his honor.
A liberty festival for the god of love. How does that connect?
It seems they linked the bonding power of love and friendship to civic freedom and community strength.
Okay, I see. And it goes even further into military contexts.
Amazingly, yes. The Lacedaemonians, the Spartans, and the Cretans, both famously warlike cultures, actually offered sacrifices to Eros before heading into battle.
Sacrifices to Eros before a fight. Why?
They believed that victory and safety on the battlefield depended heavily on the bonds of friendship and loyalty between the soldiers fighting side by side. That camaraderie, that philia, was seen as being under Eros's domain too.
So love is the glue holding the army together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows how the Greeks saw Eros not just as romantic passion, but as a fundamental force for connection, cohesion, essential for society, for the city-state, even for survival in war. It's an incredible breadth of influence.
It really is. So thinking back on all this, we've seen Eros as this glorious, complex, sometimes contradictory figure. From a primordial creator shaping the entire cosmos, the mischievous archer messing with the hearts of gods and mortals, the agent of intense passion, but also the inspiration for friendship, for liberty, and even a power used in some pretty dark narratives.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does it mean that one culture, the ancient Greeks, could pack so many diverse, sometimes opposing ideas into their god of love?
Yeah. How does digging into these ancient layers of Eros maybe challenge or expand how you, listening now, think about love, about desire, connection, even the forces that bind communities together?
Perhaps the next time you see that little cherub, maybe on a Valentine's card, you'll remember the vast, deep, and sometimes startling power behind him. Eros, the god holding the keys to every heart, capable of shaping not just relationships, but worlds and souls too.